Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on lean manufacturing. It's a system that I promise you could totally change the way you look at, well, pretty much everything you do. But first, let's start with a question that we've all lived through. Just think about it for a second. Why do we spend so much of our lives waiting? You know the feeling, sitting in the doctor's office, endlessly scrolling through your phone. Or standing in a super long line at the store, just inching forward. Or waiting for that package that's supposed to arrive today. It just feels like a normal part of life, right? But what if it doesn't have to be? Well, this is exactly where lean thinking comes in. It's a whole philosophy that's built to challenge that very idea, that waiting and frustration are unavoidable. It's designed to relentlessly hunt down and just obliterate the waste that causes all these problems in the first place. Okay, so let's dig into our first section here. What exactly is lean? Now, it can seem kind of complex, but at its heart, it's really about one simple but incredibly powerful idea. You know, Taiichi Ono, who was one of the key architects of the Toyota production system where lean was basically born, he put it perfectly. He said, all we're trying to do is shorten the timeline. It's that simple. The whole goal is to shrink the amount of time from the second a customer says, I want this, to the second you get paid. And how do you do it? By being ruthless about cutting out every single step in between that doesn't absolutely need to be there. So how do you actually shorten that timeline? To do that, you have to learn to see every single process, whether it's making a car or making a sandwich, as a battlefield. And on that battlefield are two opposing forces: activities that genuinely create value and everything else, which is just waste. But that brings up a pretty big question, right? How do we actually know what's valuable? Well, lean gives us this brilliantly simple test to figure it out. And it's all based on the only perspective that really matters: your customers. For any activity to be considered value added, it has to pass all three of these tests. No exceptions. Number one, is the customer actually willing to hand over money for this specific action? Number two, does it physically change the product or the service in some meaningful way? And number three, is it done correctly the very first time with no mistakes or rework needed? If you can't give a hard yes to all three of those, then guess what? It's not adding value. And this brings us to one of the most powerful and honestly pretty stark definitions in lean. If an activity passes that three-point test, it's value. Simple. Everything else, and I mean everything else, is waste. And here's the really crazy part. When people actually analyze most processes, they find that only about 5% of all the activities are truly adding value. The other 95%? Just waste. So the first and most critical step is learning to see all this waste that's hiding in plain sight. And to do that, lean gives us a kind of superpower, a really memorable acronym called DOWNTIME. It stands for the 8 Great Wastes. Let's run through these real quick. D is for defects. That's any work that has to be fixed or redone. O is for overproduction, making more of something than is needed right this second. Ono called this the worst waste of them all because it creates so many other problems. W is for waiting. You know this one. It's that dead time when people or parts are just sitting around. N is for non-utilized talent. This is a huge one. It's the colossal waste of not using the brilliant ideas of the people who actually know the work best. T is transportation, needlessly moving stuff from point A to point B. I is for inventory. Having piles of materials sitting around just hides problems. M is for motion. That's people moving around unnecessarily, like a mechanic walking all over the shop to find the right tool. And finally, E is for extra processing, basically gold-plating something when the customer only asked for and will only pay for silver. Okay, so this all might sound a little weird. I mean, traditional business thinking always tells us you can have it better, you can have it faster, or you can have it cheaper. Pick two, right? If you want higher quality, it's going to cost more time and money. If you want it faster, quality is probably going to suffer. But this is where lean flips everything on its head with a really cool paradox. The paradox is this: by focusing like a laser on eliminating waste, something amazing happens. You don't just get cheaper, you also get faster, and your quality goes through the roof. You get all three: better, faster, and cheaper, all at the same time. Let's make this real with a quick case study. So there was this manufacturing company that made those displays you see in stores. Their typical lead time for a big order? Anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. But then they applied lean principles. They totally reorganized their workflow to get rid of all that waiting, all that transportation, all that extra inventory. And they absolutely crushed that lead time. down to just a few days for a massive 10,000 unit order. Just incredible. And this right here is the paradox in action. They didn't just get faster. At the same time, they saw a 40% jump in their productivity and a 50% improvement in quality. Why? Because they were catching and fixing mistakes instantly instead of finding them weeks later buried in a giant pile of inventory. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's great for a factory, but what does that have to do with me? Well, here's the thing. These ideas of getting rid of waste and shortening timelines, they're universal. Because waste is everywhere, which means the opportunity to use lean is also everywhere. And you see this popping up in all sorts of fields. In healthcare, hospitals are redesigning how patients move through the system to slash those horrible wait times. The IRS use these principles to speed up tax processing. Banks are using it to make getting a loan faster and simpler. Even your local bagel shop can use it, making your order fresh right when you ask for it, instead of making a huge batch and throwing out what they don't sell. It's everywhere. So this all sounds pretty good, right? But the big question is, how do you actually start doing it? Well, it all begins with learning to see the waste that's all around you. And there are two really simple, really powerful tools to help you get started. First, conduct a waste walk. Seriously, just get a team together and physically walk a process from the very beginning to the very end. And your only job is to look for examples of downtime. Second, try drawing a spaghetti diagram. All you do is take a floor plan and draw a line that follows the actual path a person or a part takes. I promise you, you will be shocked when you see the tangled mess of lines, which is just pure wasted motion and transportation. But beyond any tool or acronym, the most important part of lean is really its philosophy. It's not about managers swooping in and making changes. It's about empowering the people who actually do the work every single day. The real goal is to facilitate their ability to make their own work better and to leave behind a culture of improvement that keeps going along after you're gone. And so that brings us to our final question for you. Now that you know how to see it, I want you to take a look around your own work, your daily routines, even your community. Where is the waiting? Where's the rework? Where are the unnecessary steps? Where is the hidden waste in your world?